Folks, thank you for joining us tonight. We'll get going in a few minutes. If you have not picked up a packet with your son's name on it, a manila folder with lots of goodies that we'll explain more about in a few. A through I in the column to my left, J through Z to the right, man with the bow tie. And there's one packet per family, so if you haven't picked that up yet, please do so now, and we'll get going in a few.
Wait, that was like 2 weeks ago. No, she's hot. She puts hot sauce. She doesn't put salt. My cousin Karina puts salt on everything.
I just have to bet I have to do more content. Let me know which one.
Yeah, I'd rather do the pills than something. Like that it goes so much, that it goes cookies that if I drink it like that, I'm not gonna do that.
Smiley man.
But homeopathic stuff.
From the outside? There you go.
had put you down at the open house. Oh, you, or just you and Xavier and I? Yeah, but you could have just showed up.
I tried to register
There was a lady that showed up and one on there.
Folks, let you know, this box we do.
Maria. I left early. I was
How you doing?
I'm curious. I just put on my calendar.
No, there's nothing. Y'all just gotta have a gallon date on your calendar. I don't volunteer. Volunteer for the gallon. Attending.
I'm gonna do it.
Gonna go?
Yeah. Do my shirt.
Yeah, I'm not volunteering. Oh, you can do that.
Yeah, what is it?
Stand by, please. It is on your calendar, on your short.
So why I need to open it up?
Friday, April 3rd. It's on the 12th of December.
What is that?
Parent Association makes us have drinks. I didn't last year. All the Christmas social. Sure. To get started. What time is it?
Okay, welcome. Thank you all for being here tonight. We're going to go ahead and get started. Just want to make sure that everyone has a folder from when you checked in. And we're not going to be able to go over everything that's in the folder, so I just want to make sure that everyone has all of the necessary information in their folders, and if not, just come see us after and we'll get you the sheets. So we have a copy of the PowerPoint, a school profile, which we'll talk about. Everyone should have a blue sheet of paper, and that should have your son's name on it, and it also has our contact information on it as well, and it has a special code on it for Naviance, this one. That should be specific to your son, and we'll talk about that later, don't worry. A transcript, which we will also cover, so this is your son's transcript, just to give you an idea of what a Xavier transcript looks like. And what will be sent to colleges. The one we send to colleges will have senior year information on it. and junior year grades also. So just a sample transcript, or an up-to-date transcript rather. This pink sheet is everything that we're going to be covering with your son starting in February in what we call college counseling groups. So these are some of the topics that we will discuss and go over and complete with your son here at Xavier. Beginning in February. This is a timeline that started with freshman year, and it's broken into student and parent responsibilities. Kind of goes all the way through senior year, first semester, so that has a lot of good information on it. You may want to go through and, just to feel good, check off some of the things you've already done. And we have some FAQs for testing, and we're going to talk a lot about testing tonight. I know families will have questions about that. And then we also just put in a slip about some recommended test prep companies that we know that Xavier students have worked with in the past. So hopefully everyone has all of that. Student workers worked hard putting all that together. So again, welcome. I know it probably feels like you were just here for freshman orientation, but that's sort of how it goes, and here we are in its junior year, and we are officially kicking off the college process together. Since this is sort of the first formal meeting that you have with our department, I want to introduce all of us that are here tonight. So Jimmy and myself were probably the newest members of the college counseling department, but Jimmy brings the perspective of a former Xavier student, so that's really helpful. I am new to Xavier, but I've been working in college counseling for 10 years now. And then Laura and Tom have both had a lot of experience both here at Xavier. Tom's worked in probably the longest here and in a lot of different areas of the school. And Laura's actually worked in college admissions, so she brings that perspective to the department. We all have, different responsibilities or different experiences that we bring to the department, but I think the important thing is to know that we do work very closely as a team. Our offices are very close to each other, so just logistically we work together, and your son will be assigned one of us as their college counselor, but that's not to say that, you couldn't call another one of us or he couldn't stop by our office. So just to let you know that, just start it off. Another thing is that we work really closely with the guidance department. So that department's we're all under one umbrella, but they are separate. So we work really closely with Ms. Sherman's team, and to make sure that the transition from guidance counselor to college counselor is nice and seamless. We meet with them regularly. We will work together to write their letters of recommendation. So just, we do work closely with the guidance counselors who your son has been meeting with since freshman year. Another really important person in our office, we just ran out of space, but she's very important, Melissa Cassidy. She's the office assistant, so you may have already gotten some emails from her. Her contact information is also at the back of the PowerPoint. So not only is she a great person to contact if you can't get in touch with one of us, but it also just means that she does a lot of a lot of the work in the office, administrative stuff, and that allows us more time with your sons face-to-face. So Melissa Cassidy is another important member of our team. So if you hear that name or see her name in your inbox, that's so you know. So tonight's meeting, we broke up into three important topics. The first one, we'll actually cover the components of the application, the main components, what's being evaluated in a college application. We're going to talk a lot about college fit and building the college list. I know many of you are maybe thinking about going on college visits, so we'll talk a little bit about where you begin that and what's a good place to start, what's a good fit for my son. And then a timeline, because you probably want to walk away knowing like what's next, what do I have to do, what do I have to do in the next couple months over the summer. So we'll give you some important deadlines and dates and things to think about. I know you may feel like this, maybe just a show of hands. How many families is this your first time through the college process? Okay, wow, yeah, so it's definitely overwhelming. I think the important, everyone is feeling that same stress and sort of, it adds a whole nother element definitely to your son's high school experience. junior year is we know when the stress kicks in, it's probably what you talk about a lot at home. It just sort of takes over the conversation, or it will start to take over the conversation. So I think while as overwhelming as it is, it's also pretty normal. You're in this together, and we are here to help you. About 80% of the class of 2020 has already applied to college, so we're hitting that point in the year where our focus will be switching over mostly to your sons, to the juniors, the class of 2021. So we are here to help you get through this process. So, in addition to, Xavier High School has a mission statement that is very strong and well known throughout the school, but the college counseling department also has sort of our own little sub-mission statement, and we just believe that this is going to be a time of immense personal growth for your sons. We think that, the process involves a lot of serious reflection on their part, thinking back on what they enjoyed in high school, or what they have enjoyed in high school, what they've excelled in high school, and the better they know themselves, the more prepared they will be to face this process, and more successful they will be in the process. So it is, you will probably see them, or hopefully see them, sort of growing throughout the process, and we want it to be a thoughtful process. And it is their college process, so, the temptation probably sometimes is to do it for them, and we feel that as well, too. Many times it would be easier to just do it for them, or but we want them to really take the lead on this process, knowing that it is their process, and at the end of the day, they are the ones who are going to be going to college. And the last point is that, and we'll talk a lot about college fit and match and finding your the best fit, but we want you to have a balance. We want your son to have a balanced list of colleges that he applies to, and the important thing there is we also want you as a family to have many options, right? So we don't want you to be maybe too focused on name brand, or just going after like super selective colleges if they're necessarily not a good fit for your son. And at the same time, we don't want your son to sell himself short, right? So if he's worked really hard here at Xavier, we want him to be applying to schools that are, at his level. So, but it also, there needs to be a balance, and we spend a lot of time honing the college list to make sure that there is a reasonable balance of schools. So likely, target, and reach is some of the terminology that we'll throw out there, but we'll go more into that about building a college list that's balanced. But at the end of the day, it's so that you have options, so that you're prepared to in the spring of his senior year, to make the best decision, and knowing that it is one of the biggest decisions he'll make in his life. So okay, so communication. I know this is definitely easier said than done, but we hear a lot like, oh, my son didn't tell me that, or even worse, we meet with students and they have no idea what's going on in their college process, and that's because maybe the parent has done it totally for them. So we think it will go a whole lot better if everyone is working together as a team, and this just shows you the different modes of, or different ways of communicating. Obviously, students and parents will be communicating throughout the process. Student and counselor, we meet with them regularly throughout the day, or throughout the school day. They can meet with us, and then we are also available to meet with you, or to speak with you and communicating. So parents and students communicating together with the counselor. And these are just some different ways. So, we may not always be able to, you may not always be able to meet with us or have a phone call one-on-one, but here are just some ways that we sort of communicate with you as a whole, and that's through our college counseling handbook. So we have a handbook that outlines a lot of our policies and procedures. It's pretty detailed, but just in case you wanted to get an idea of those, we do have a handbook on the website, and then we do regularly email you, so hopefully you've started to get emails from our office, and then there is a lot of good information on the Xavier website. we have our own little college counseling tab, and we update that regularly as well. Okay, so like I said, we're going to talk a lot about what's evaluated through the college or during the college process. So it's broken into 5 main components, and we're going to go into depth on each one of them. The first is the high school transcript, and you should all have a high school transcript from your son. Not only does that show trends starting in freshman year, it shows the rigor of the coursework that they take, the classes they take, and that's all evaluated within the context of Xavier High School. Test scores are another important part of the college application, and we'll talk a lot about, or next we'll talk about specifically about SAT and ACT test scores. Extracurricular involvement is the third thing that's evaluated, and that is in the form of, clubs, activities, sports, community service. So things like that your son's been doing throughout high school are all factored into the college application process. Letters of recommendation. So students will ask a teacher to write them a letter of recommendation, and then the counselor will also write them a letter of recommendation. And usually that comes from a junior year teacher. And then the personal statement. And we spend a lot of time helping students come up with personal statement. The English department here does a really good job too of getting them started early on that. And a lot of students really like that and use that as an opportunity to tell their story, maybe, just beyond the numbers, beyond their transcript, beyond their test scores. So we are going to start talking about each one, and I'm going to pass it over to Laura.
That
third hand. Gosh, I've been waiting for that for a while. I'm sure moms and dads are always looking for an extra hand. So hi everybody, I'm Laura Amagon, one of the college counselors here, and we're using the mic this time. We're live streaming, so I feel like I'm kind of a celebrity, so hello to everybody at home. I've always wanted to say that. But it's so nice to see some familiar faces. So how many parents here have been through this process before? Okay, that's nice. And first son or daughter, or son to go through this process? Okay, so first ones too. Great. Well, I think it's so great to have parents who've been through this process before to come to these evenings. It just signals to us that you find these valuable, so that's really helpful for us, that you're back. And I think it also signals to your son that you're all in this process, that you want the information, that you want to get started, and just really be as informed as possible about this process. I know with older siblings, when we went through the process, my dad would go to all of these things. I'm like, Dad, don't you know this by now? He's like, yes, I do, but every child is different. I was like, oh, right, I am different. And so it just kind of cleared my mind that we were in this together. So that's just my word of thanks to being here tonight, especially not great weather, so thanks. Okay, so I'm going to start with some of these components, and I like talking about the transcript and the test scores, kind of the quantitative parts of the application. Jimmy's going to go into some of the other areas. But first, NACAC is the National Association of College Admissions Counselors. Okay, so NACAC basically, a lot of the publications, a lot of the work that they do encompasses high schools and colleges, but they do a survey every year of tons of different kinds of colleges, public, private, four-year, community college, everything. And they put out this survey, and they put out the results of basically ranking the admissions factors. So what they look at in their application review. And year after year, this triangle looks the same, which is that the high school transcript is really the foundational part of the application review. Having done admissions, that's where we spend a lot of our time, is we dissect the transcript. That's part of why we gave the transcript in the packet. Following the transcript, many schools then are kind of looking at the test scores. I'm going to talk about test scores more in a minute, but that's kind of, most colleges will say, is second to the transcript. Now, some of the more highly selective colleges, the difference between the transcript and the scores is pretty small. Some of the other colleges that are more accepting are, the scores are much below in their ranking of what's important to the transcript. Does that make sense? So the more highly selective schools, the closer the transcript and the scores are going to be. They'll always tell you that the transcript trumps the scores, though. Okay. And then the letters of recommendation from the counselors and the teachers are really a big part of the application. Again, not as big as the scores and the transcript, but they really fill in the pieces about the student. They kind of fill in that picture. And they really are important to the admissions committees to really understand what the student's about, the larger context of the student. That's where the counselor rec comes in. And then the teacher recommendations are really speaking to how the student is in the classroom, beyond the numbers. Okay, so really important components. Finally, the essay, really the student's voice, big part of the application. They often will read that first. I've heard that many times from admissions officers, that they read the essay first, get a feel for the student, what he or she chose to write about, how they wrote about it, and then they go on to the other pieces of the application. And then their activities, extracurriculars, that kind of thing. So I like to show this one because I think it answers a couple questions off the bat, which is, I often get questions of, my son does X, Y, Z. Should he also be doing QRS? It's like, well, if he wants to be doing QRS and he can fit it in his schedule, then great. But there's no specific set activities or extracurriculars that he has to have. Okay, they want to see that the students are involved, how they spend their time, what they're doing to develop their interest and their potential even career development. They want to just see how the student's using their time. So if a student doesn't have to check 10 certain boxes of extracurriculars. That being said, if your son's not really involved, and there's no boxes, then he needs to get some boxes, whatever they may be. Okay, and Jimmy's going to go into this a little bit more. Sorry, Jimmy. But I like this slide again because I had a parent once say, but he's got the high school transcript. And this student, is a great student, awesome transcript. He was applying to very highly selective schools. I said at the very least he needs the transcript. The more selective the school, the more each of these factors is going to be part of the review process. Does that make sense? So, all of these factors are important, but if the transcript is not there for a particular college, it's not going to be part of their review. That being said, if the transcript is there, then they start kind of moving down the list. Okay? So, and I'll come back to the demonstrative interest thing in just a second. But the transcript. So the Xavier transcript you have in your folder, and we like to show you that mainly because I think when the students get their grades on their report cards and at the end of the year, they'd never actually see this transcript. So we like to show it to students and to parents so that they can see that colleges receive the year-end grade in each subject for each year. And that they can see, the colleges can see the GPA for 9th grade, and they can see the GPA for the 10th grade, and they can see the GPA for the 11th grade, okay? And when they get these applications in the fall of senior year, they're going to see the senior year courses. The courses will be listed on them. Because they're in progress, they won't have any grades yet for senior year. We'll talk about that in a minute. So they don't see each quarter. They don't see final exam averages. They see the year-end average, okay? So if your son has a moment where he is freaking out because he didn't do well a particular quarter, and everybody's panicked that the colleges will see that quarter, they won't see that quarter. They'll see the average. So hopefully it's just one quarter, and then he's recovered. When they look at the transcript, they're going to look at the bottom left-hand corner where it's the unweighted cumulative GPA. Now that's the average of 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. Okay? So right now what you're looking at is just the average of 9th and 10th. Okay? So when colleges get the transcript, they're going to look at the average of 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. Equally important each year. Okay? How many people have heard that junior year is the most important? Well, that's because your sons are juniors. So yes, it is the most important. If you were a room of sophomore parents, I would say sophomore year is the most important. And freshman year, freshman, because that's what you're in. That's what your sons have control of right now, is the junior year. The reason why it's important is because it's the most recent full year that students will have completed when colleges are looking at them. So if you have a son who freshman year had not the best year, Okay, maybe not as great, and then sophomore year made an improvement. They're going to see that trend in grades. That's what's called the trend in grades. So they're going to look to see what went, even from course to course. So if freshman year, not so great in math, we have a lot of guys, if they just started a language for the first time, Spanish wasn't great, but by sophomore year, the college can see that Spanish went up. They can see that, they'll look at that from year to year, even within a course. They're also looking for the trend in rigor, so the rigor of the program. What is happening each year with the courses the student's taking? Now, we have our requirements, and that's where the profile comes in. We have the profile in there yet? Right. So the profile lists, all the colleges receive that when the applications go out from us. We send the profile. So they see all the courses that are available to the students, and they know what's required also. So they will see what the students have taken each year, and they'll know when there was an opportunity to take an honors course or to take an AP course. So they will look to see, especially if a student has been very successful in certain areas. So if a student's been in high 90s, mid 90s in math, since freshman year, are they at some point making the shift to either the honors math or the AP math? Okay. Now, different schools are going to look at the rigor of the program differently. Okay. The most highly selective colleges are looking for a significant number of honors and AP courses, meaning that the student has taken the maximum amount of rigor that our school offers. Okay. A lot of the colleges where they are medium selectivity, so by that I mean like in the 50% to 75% range of selectivity, they're going to want to see that a student has challenged himself in an area or two. They want to see an honors or two. They want to see an AP or two. Fordham, for example, where I used to work, are they looking for 10 APs? No. Do they want to see one or two on the transcript that the student, again, where the student has had success and wants to find that rigor to the next level? Okay. Then some colleges, they know that Xavier is a college prep school. They know that all of our courses, we have no remedial courses here. All of our courses are college prep courses. So they know that the basic offerings are going to be college prep. They're getting students ready for college. Okay, and they're fine with that transcript as well. What I encourage you to think about, and they're just getting into their junior year classes now, but come post-Christmas, is to start to think about what areas can he challenge himself in for senior year. Okay, there's a lot more offerings for seniors. The colleges also find out on our profile about our AP policy that we have. You have to be admitted into the AP, you have to apply to the AP class, you have to meet certain prerequisites. This is different from other high schools. Some high schools, you just sign up for the AP and you go in, right? They don't have prerequisites. Or you go into the AP class and you don't even have to take the AP exam at the end of the class. So there are high schools where you can take 5 APs in freshman year. I mean, I've seen transcripts like that. It's amazing. You have to be approved to take a certain number of APs beyond the 3 here. So anyway, the point is that we have a certain set way of doing this. The profile communicates that. But the main thing is, again, for you and your sons to be discussing where he feels like he can find success, where he can be challenged, and then finding the right balance. His guidance counselors, the guidance counselor will be available to talk about that over the course of the year. Come usually December, beginning of January, we're going to start being available to have those course conversations as well. But it really starts at home, kind of thinking what he's feeling in terms of rigor, and you want to think about that balance of success and challenge. Okay, so on the transcript, again, going back to trend in grades, they're looking year to year. They are looking at the most recent work to see where the rigor is. They're going to look at senior courses to look where the rigor is. They want to get a sense of where your son is falling in his class. So on the profile as well, we give a snapshot of what our GPA breakdown is. So just based on the GPA, the college can kind of see where the student is falling in the class without having to rank. So many high schools have stopped ranking. It kind of was arbitrary because students with very similar GPAs were, 30 spaces apart. It became unproductive. So many high schools don't rank anymore, and most of the colleges at this point aren't even looking for rank. But they do want to get a sense of what your sons are doing within the context of their high school. So that's where the profile and the transcript kind of come together. Also, just so you know, in case you start visiting colleges, many colleges will read applications by territories. So their admissions reps that are assigned to certain territories, and so they read all the applications from those areas. A lot of colleges work this way, but not all of them. But so when we send our applications out to Fordham, we know that the same person is reading all the applications from Fordham. That is not to make you feel, or for students to feel, that they're in direct competition with the guy next to him, in class, but in a way they're being all compared to the larger pool that's applying to Fordham. But my point there is that the person reading applications from Fordham knows Xavier very well. They know the rigor of our courses. They know that, students with an 88 average, that's a really good average here. Okay? They know that, 50% of our class are not 95 and above. There are places where, half of the class are in the 90s with their GPA. So they understand the context of our grading scale and how we do things at Xavier. That's communicated in the profile, and then just the relationship we have with those schools. Okay, are we good on the transcript? Okay, yes, quick question, yeah.
What is the concept of weighted and unweighted?
Okay, good. So the idea of weighted is that if you take an honors class or you take an AP class, that when your GPA is calculated, an extra boost would be put into the GPA because of that class is an advanced class. So we don't do that here. So all of the way that works is on our transcript, the transcript shows that the number grade, the one out of 100 grade that the student earns in the class. That's true for schools that weight too. The transcript is what the student earns in the class. Now where the GPA is calculated is when schools that weight GPAs will give the boost, is at the bottom on the GPA calculation.
So anywhere on this transcript right now, do I see the weighted?
No, we don't weight. We don't do that.
I don't see that.
We don't do that.
All right,
No.
so then, assuming he did well in those classes, the GPA would be his lowest GPA.
His one and only GPA. Yeah. Right. So we don't weight. We don't assign anything.
People who care about weighted would be higher than that.
So the people who weight are other high schools who would add weight to the GPA calculation on the transcript.
Okay, but then when the college look at it, they know that we don't weight.
Exactly. Sorry. I'm sorry. Yes, I didn't mean to go loop around that. Yes, the colleges know that we don't weight grades. And the reason why we do that is because we do not assign the weight to the coursework. The colleges assign the weight to the coursework. So a lot of schools recalculate the weighted GPAs. So when they recalculate at schools where they put the weight in, they recalculate it, they basically unweight it, and then they put on their own weighting system. We don't do that, we just give them the unweighted grade, GPA, and then they assign the weight as they see fit for their institution.
And one more question.
Yes.
What is the difference between AP and honors?
Okay, good question. This is good. This is going to help us on the back end because that's usually questions that come up on the back end. So the difference between honors and AP is that AP is a College Board curriculum course. It's a curriculum designed by the College Board that any AP class offered in the U.S. or abroad, that AP U.S. History class is the same class, same curriculum. Now taught by Xavier teachers. Throughout the year, the student is taking Xavier teacher assessments. Okay, so quizzes and tests and homeworks are all designed by our teachers following this AP curriculum. But at the end of the school year in May, they will take the AP exam in that subject that we get from College Board. They all take it. It gets shipped out to College Board. College Board grades it. They get an exam score on the AP exam, 1 out of 5. That exam score at certain colleges, depending on which subject it is, could count for college credit at that course. But basically, it's a standard curriculum that the colleges know what the rigor is the depth of the material by AP. An honors course is a Xavier originated course. We designed the curriculum for that honors course. The difference of the honors course versus the college prep course, meaning the regular grade level course, is that it's meant to go faster and deeper into the material. So it's not something that they're going to get, it's not a standard course that like our honors English 10 is not going to be the same as another school's honor English 10.
Do you offer honors and AP in the same subject?
Another good question. No, we do not. We do not, like for, say, AP US History, we do not offer US History. You know this, you're in junior year. There's no honors US History. It's either AP or the regular. At the senior level, too, there's either the AP or regular. I don't even know. Some guys taking honors in senior year. It's either AP or the regular. Same thing with sophomore year. You have the global or the AP World. There are some schools that offer the full range of everything, but those are going to be much larger high schools that have that.
Guys,
yeah.
will you just hold questions till the end of the thing? Write them down. We'll come back to you in the end.
All right, so thanks, Tom. I like okay, so let's move on to the testing. SAT and ACT. So all colleges accept either test. Okay, you don't have to take both. You can take one and not the other. You don't have to take both. They will take all of them. We usually recommend that the students are taking one of the tests at least twice. The reason for that is not only the practice, the experience, they get better at taking the test, but all colleges super score the components of the SAT. Okay, so super score is a term to know. The components of the SAT, which means that if they're going to take the highest math section and the highest verbal section, the highest critical reading and writing section. And they're going to combine those two to be the student's SAT score. So if your son takes the May SAT and gets a 600 in writing and a 500 in math, then takes it again in the fall in September, gets a 500 in the verbal and the 600 in math, the super score will be the 600 from each section. We've got that. Okay, great. So that's a super score. So that's definitely why we recommend at least twice, because often at least one of the two sections go up. So they'll get the boost from that. Many colleges are now super scoring the components of the ACT. So the ACT is another standardized test, very popular in the West, Midwest. It's moving in on College Board's market share, so it's coming into East Coast pretty strong. A lot of students are taking it now. Some are not even taking the SAT. It's scored a 1 through 36 scale, and it has 4 different components. So many colleges now, not all, but many, are now super scoring the components of the ACT. Again, giving you the best shot if you take it at least once, at least more than once. Some students will take it 3 times, some students will take it 4 times. It's a family preference, it's a student preference, how many times he takes it. So your sons have all gone through already. The first test drive of these 2 tests kind of side by side. They took the PSAT for the 2nd time in October, and then they took the pre-ACT, I think it was September 30th, so end of September this year. They will get those scores back in a couple weeks. Mr. Gibbons is gonna give those scores back to the guys and talk them through it. You just hand them the scores and send them off. A, they'll probably lose the paper and the information, and then B, they don't have the context for it. So Mr. Gibbons gives a great understanding of how to understand those scores. The thing about those 2 scores is that it's a great experience for the guys to have it kind of close, I think it was 2 weeks apart. They're just different tests. Some guys find themselves more directed towards the SAT, and some guys like the ACT better. I always recommend go online, do some more practice tests. It's like test driving a car, which they don't know what that means, but they just try both out. They try the sections of each, see which one feels more comfortable, and then pick one and start with it. Some guys will take both an SAT and an ACT. They'll compare the scores. So there's a conversion chart of SAT to ACT online. Just Google it, you'll come up with the conversion chart. And then you can kind of see which test went better. And based on what he felt and how he thought of the test, then you proceed with one. We generally recommend just eventually pick one. If you're trying to take each test 3 times, that's a lot of testing, and it's confusing. So pick one. SAT subject tests. We don't talk about these that much anymore because many of the schools that used to require subject tests, so these are standardized tests, they're usually about an hour long in a particular subject. Many of the colleges that used to require them no longer require them. They figured out that they were a barrier to many students to apply. So a lot of schools will say, that they are recommended, or that all of them will look at the scores if you send an SAT subject test score. A good old Google search of which colleges require subject tests. There are a lot of websites that kind of pull that information so you can see which schools are requiring subject tests. If your student is doing very well in a particular class, and the idea of studying a little bit more for a subject test, so for example, the physics subject test is not the same exact curriculum, or the SAT subject test is not the same exact material as the AP physics class, or the physics class. So if he's doing really well in physics, and the idea of studying a little bit more, he's okay with that, and he wants to take the physics test, we recommend that he takes it in the June testing at the end of this, at the end of the year he's taking the class. Does that make sense? So if he's taking AP US history now, to take the US subject test is not a big stretch if he's taking the AP in May and he takes the subject test in June. Now you can't take subject tests and the regular SAT on the same day. You can only take subject test or the SAT. The reason why we bring this up is just to make you aware of it, that they're out there. Again, most of our guys are not taking, I shouldn't say most, actually I don't have the percentage on the top of my head, who actually take a subject test. Whatever the score is that he receives on that test, he doesn't have to send it to the colleges. So he has the option to send that subject test score later if he wants. So he can just have it sitting there and then decide later if he wants to take it. Some of the guys, if they're pursuing engineering, some of the programs will want to see, again, whether they designate it as required or recommended. They may want to see a subject test in the math. There's a math 1 and a math 2, or the physics or the chemistry, or maybe whatever area of science he might want to study. So just to keep on your radar. If he's, again, I always say, if he's doing very well in a subject, and the idea of studying a little bit more is okay with him in June when he has to study for his finals anyway, but some guys are happy to keep studying on their own, then that could be something to think about. Another great thing to know is test optional. So many schools are now going test optional, which means that they do not require SAT or ACT as part of the application. So the student has a choice for those schools whether or not he wants to send his scores. If he sends them, they will be part of the review. If he doesn't send them, they will be as if that piece of the pie was just never part of the pie. And the admissions reps, like we had St. Joe's here today, they just don't consider it for the students who don't send the scores. So they really do confirm that it's as if it just didn't exist. It's not like it's held against them or that they assume that the student had low testing because they didn't send them. They have done studies at their school to know that they can enroll the same caliber of class with some of the students not submitting test scores. That the students will do just as well once they're at that school. So they've made that kind of institutional decision not to require testing, and they end up doing just the same. It does not affect scholarship. Some places for scholarship review, if you don't submit your test scores, they may ask for some additional components. Who was telling me that they asked for another written essay or a graded paper if they don't, for scholarship review. if they were at that level. Every school can be a little bit different with the scholarship review, with the test optional, so it's always good to check in with that school. Also, some places that are test optional, they may have a program or two that do require testing, like if they have a nursing program or if they have an engineering program, they may require testing just for that program. So always good to go to the school's website. I might be giving you more detailed information than you need right now. But fairtest.org is the website that lists all of the schools that are test optional. I did have a student one year who took no test. He was very adamant. He did not want to take an SAT or an ACT. He looked at the fairtest.org site, saw loads of schools he was excited to go to. His parents were on board, no SAT, no ACT, applied to a lot of great schools, had a great bunch of schools to choose from, happy as can be. Very proud of the fact that he took no test. Shared that with all of his friends very readily. Now, if you apply to the SUNYs or the CUNYs, they are not test optional. So he was not applying to those places. So, okay, this is my last slide. I'm not going too long. Test prep. I'm sure that's on people's minds. Really think and talk with your son kind of the long-term test plan. Okay? This is a long road. I say at the bottom, consider test prep fatigue. If he's doing a lot of test prep now, like a lot of our guys are taking 1 or 2 tests in the fall of their senior year. Okay, so if they're doing that now, that's like a full calendar year of test prep potentially. You know, if he's doing testing now and he's trying out, if he's doing prep now and he's trying out the SAT or the ACT and a lot of prep's going into those initial tests, think about, you know, when he's taking them again in the fall, is he going to be doing prep in the middle? You know, think about where your prep dollars are going and what's the best time for your son to really focus on it. And what's the best setup for him? Is it better to do one-on-one tutoring? Is it better to do a class? You know, where is he going to really be the most productive? And when? A lot of guys, they want test prep as part of their academic schedule. Just put it as another class, you know, and they'll get it done. Some guys can't add that to the mix. They can't really get the homework done. It's the homework that makes the test prep, it's the practice, right? It's the practice that makes the test prep successful. So a lot of the guys, if they can't be doing the test prep during the school year, during the, you know, when they have all their other work, the summer is a much better time to do the test prep. So some people feel like, is it too late to do test prep between the summer, between junior year and senior year? For some people, that's the better time to do it because they can actually focus on it. They've taken one test already. They know where their weaknesses are. They know where their strengths are, and they can, you know, they can tailor their test prep to that, and then do it again in the fall of senior year. And then some students, you can't get them to do anything over the summer. So the idea of test prep would just be a waste. So talk with your son. Where does he think he's going to be most successful with test prep? Give these tests out. I think give these tests out a try, at least online. Practice them, the 2 of them, before you decide whether you go with SAT or ACT test prep. Some people will make the investment in one test with the test prep, and then he takes it, does better on a different one, and they shift gears, and then they start paying for another type of test prep. So, a lot of free options too online. Khan Academy's teamed up with College Board. They have test prep that's actually tailored to your son's PSAT results. They will tailor a test prep program free online to his PSAT results. And then if he takes an SAT, and that's now in his account, the test prep will be tailored to what he got wrong on the more recent SAT. So our guys, a lot of them have been using it. You know, I say it's a great study break from your Xavier work. Is go on that, do a couple of questions in the areas where you got more of those questions wrong on the last SAT. So I think those free resources are great in between testing. So that to not necessarily pay for a whole other round of test prep, but these resources can bridge that gap, keep them working on the areas where they showed weakness. Okay, sorry, that's done. I'm done. Thanks. The microphone. I love the microphone. Oh, here, I'm sorry.
Hello, everyone. So as Laura and Molly introduced me before, my name is Jimmy Buckley, and aside from looking like I could be a senior, I am a recent grad for the most part, class of 2013. Had a few brothers go through the mix, so very familiar with your son's experiences and what Xavier has to offer. So as Laura stated before, she talked a lot about the quantitative stuff, the numbers, the big pieces of the application. I'm here to talk about the qualitative stuff, what makes your student and what your son, you, and what adds to those components. So I think that's important to consider. All of these components, that backwards pyramid we showed, adds to your son's application in the greater context. Who is he as a student? Who is he as you know, a person? What is he becoming? What is he interested in? And I think, in general, our guys are pretty involved for the most part, and that's something we take pride in, something we actively try and strive for. So something to consider as you enter into the beginning of junior year. Some potential leadership roles, if your guys are pursuing clubs, whether that's academic, extracurricular, whether they're in the drama society, whether they're on sports. Make the push to be a leader. Make the push to kind of rise above and show why you could be counted on, because colleges want people they can count on. They want people that are going to be good, active, contributing members to their community. So something to think about. I know not every guy is considered a leader, and there's other ways to be leaders, but just something to think about if your son kind of shows interest in a particular subject, a particular sport, a particular club, maybe push him. Give them that opportunity to reach out to a coach, reach out to a moderator. The more contact they have with, their coaches, their support systems here, Xavier, teachers, faculty, staff, etc., want to get to know your son, and they'd be more than happy to do that. And again, outside of school as well. We know not all guys are involved in stuff inside Xavier, and there's other stuff outside of Xavier as well. So something to think about. Quality and commitment over quantity. Colleges see how many activities they list, and if they're just listing 5 clubs all joined in senior year, they're going to be like, how involved is he in the Irish American Society? Is that really something that he goes to actively on a weekly basis, or is that something that he just kind of jumped in last minute? So that commitment. And while obviously they may get the commitment late, they may get the interest late, showing that ongoing consistency. So we have various clubs for majors. If your son's shown an interest in business and he's not interested in sports or activities here at Xavier, we have plenty of investment clubs. We've got clubs for everything. So encouraging him to take advantage of that, because those typically don't go after school, they're during school. So in many ways, there's not a full amount of excuses to not be involved in something. Sports. If your son is participating in sport, awesome. Continue to do that. If they're not interested in the sport anymore, and it's junior year, and they're really, really adamant about not participating senior year, have that conversation with them. If they don't want to do that, great. But what are you doing instead? What is that substitute looking like? Something that you have to be involved in something. You don't want to just take away and not add. An active summer for junior year, whether that's working, whether that's camps, whether that's classes, whether that's volunteering. There are plenty of opportunities. Or seeing colleges. Not a bad time to do that as well. A little quieter on campus now during the summer, but a good idea to get a feel for what you can expect, and it could, kickstart your son's enthusiasm about the college process. I found that a lot of guys, after visiting one place, or after we do the bus trip in April, tend to get excited about the prospect of something different, and that kind of motivates them more than they may have been, or continues to push them forward. Christian service, if your sons are doing Christian service at a particular spot, consider continuing that. They want to see commitment. If you're continuing to give back outside of the 15 or so hours that they're supposed to give for religion class, it looks pretty good. And you never know, he could learn a lot, could meet new people, could find a passion that you may not have had previously. If minimal involvement, if your son's a 240 guy, just goes home, kind of plays video games, studies, does his homework, repeat, encourage him to get involved. We're here to help. College counselors, teachers, we want to see your son invested in Xavier or invested in something that they're passionate about. We know, again, not every guy's going to make the team. Not every guy's going to have a passion for this club. But what are they doing outside of that? So I think that's really important, the quality. And that adds to the picture. You know, you could have a guy who's a 90 student, but he's not involved in anything at the school. So what does that tell you, or outside of the school? So what does that tell you? He's a good student. That's it. You know what I mean? And colleges will accept that, and they will take that into account. However, when you're applying to the higher schools and the more competitive aspects of these things, they want to see the involvement. They want to see the balance. They want to see that a student can handle the rigor with, you know, passions, with things outside of the school. How are they going to be a community member? So that's extracurriculars. And now I'm going to talk about letters of rec. So your sons in their junior year will ask for one teacher recommendation from a junior year teacher. They'll also get a letter of recommendation from the counselor, and that'll be in collaboration with your college counselor and with their counselor who they've had the past 4 years. So we work closely with them, making sure we get every aspect of who this student is in our context, at home, who they are as a person, that kind of thing. The teacher recommendation is who they are as a student. While it's great that if you want to ask your coach, who's also your teacher, to write you a letter of recommendation, great. But it's going to be based off your academic involvement. Who are you as a student? Are you participating? Are you somebody who just gets the job done, who's on time? Not everybody's going to be raising their hands in class. That's okay. But they are going to want to look for engagement. At the end of the day, you're going to school. That's what you're going to college for, to get an education, to be a student, to contribute to that academic learning community, and hopefully foster a profession, a passion for what you want to do in the future. So encouraging students to participate in class, while I know that might not go over super well with every guy, and why there might be some hesitation to that, maybe going to see the teacher during community period. Maybe just asking them a handful of questions on the side. Maybe giving them an email or two. Teachers want to get to know their students. Could help their grades a little, could give them the benefit of the doubt. Doesn't hurt to necessarily create a bond. At the end of the day, this is a people communicating with people. And they want to see your son succeed. So while the intimidation factor may be there, you may not want to approach a teacher, or may not know how to, it's good to get to know them. So encouraging that, and we continue to kind of encourage that as we meet with them in junior year. So now I'm going to talk about our program, Naviance. This is the college web searching program. You're going to hear Naviance a ton the next 2 years, and I encourage you guys to take a look at that. The account login information is actually in your Manila folder. So if you guys want to check that out when you're home, by all means. But this is our program. It's a way for us to communicate with you guys, with your students, on a variety of different things. So when colleges are visiting, when we have representatives here at the school, we'll send out reminder emails like, hey, you signed up to visit with the University of Scranton today. We just send you a reminder, this is what time it's at. That kind of thing. Or we have interview days for seniors. So some schools will come, sit down with our guys, and they'll interview them. They'll give them that kind of personal one-on-one interaction, 15 minutes or so. Not every school, but schools that we have good relationships with like coming, and they like getting to know our guys. They want to see who they are, and that puts a face to that name behind the application. So something to think about. It also gives you a good way to college search. Searching colleges on that is the main premise and the main process of Naviance. We'll also use that as an application device, how to organize your college list, how to find colleges that work for you, looking at population, size, fit, religious affiliation, programs, etc. This is a pretty expansive website, and we start working with the juniors in the spring with that in a more in-depth way, showing them how to operate that in general. And then the scattergrams. So there's scattergrams, they're available, and they're sort of these charts that put your son's GPA, and right now his PSAT score, in the context of other Xavier students who have previously applied to the school. just to give a roundabout expectation, way to shape things. You'll see a lot of outliers, you'll see a lot of in-betweens, but it's just to give you an idea of where you kind of stack up with the other Xavier guys who have applied previously, and did they find success based off of strictly numbers and scores. That's what we're trying to impress there. And then again, communication tool. I know a lot of guys don't always look at emails. Now is the perfect time to start stressing checking your emails. If you see one of our names on the email list, or Miss Cassidy's more importantly, encourage them to open it. We don't bite, we're here to help. We want to make sure that they're getting the information they need. So again, continue to encourage that email checking. It's just good personal and professional practice. And then we're going to talk about fit. So our big philosophy structures around college fit. What does that mean? It's not necessarily the name recognition. It's not the name brand. Oh, we're shooting for Ivy Leagues. While some kids might, and if that fits for them, then that works. But we're also looking for places where your son's going to be comfortable, where he's going to succeed, where he's going to be pushed, but he's not going to drown. So it's important for us to help your sons figure out a place that they're going to be happy, that they're going to succeed, and that they're going to learn. The second piece, so these three pieces all work together: family fit, college fit, student fit, right? Student could love the school. It may be really, really expensive, and they may not give a ton of financial aid or tuition scholarships. So that might not be a family fit. It might be across the country. You may not be willing to send your son across the country. We understand that you guys are as equally, if not more in many ways, part of this process. So it's the ongoing conversation between those two things, going back to what Molly said about the constant communication. So son and counselor communication, parent and son communication, and then us all coming together. College fit. So while your son might think that's a good fit for them, does the college think it's a good fit for them? What does that mean? Does the college see that person on the campus? Do they see him succeeding? Is he going to find success there? Is he going to challenge himself? Does he meet the standards that they put forward or that they believe in? Does the mission statement match up with this criteria for this particular student? And I think that's a tough, it's always a tough line to juggle or justify in general what works for your son and your family versus what works for the college. So it's got to work all three ways, something that we'll continue to talk about with them as we go. And then family fit. So distance, travel, environment, obviously financially, it's an expensive investment that you guys are making. So, and one that hopefully will pay off and hopefully be fruitful for you and your son. But something to consider. Getting on campus is the best way to see fit first. Like, can you see your son walking around on this campus with 4,000 students? Does it have a familiar feel? Does it feel like he's enjoying the tour? Does he seem into it or out of it? Is he engaged with what kind of programs they offer? Does it match and check all these boxes? Academics, the community life. Is he going to be able to pursue programs that he wants? Is he going to have opportunities for internships or other periods and places for growth? And then again, distance, travel. Is he going to like an urban environment? Is he going to like somewhere further away? A smaller campus? A larger campus? Ongoing conversations that we'll all have soon enough. Oops. And then building the college list. So going off the fit piece that I kept stressing, and that will be a continued theme. Naviance, fit, two big words that'll come up continually. Building a college list. So the average number of colleges that our guys apply to are 8 to 12. Is this a fixed number? No. This is just the general number that Xavier guys apply to. Some guys apply to a ton. Some only apply to a couple, and they're confident with that. It's an ongoing conversation with us, with you guys, with them. So finding out what works for them. So 8 to 12 seems to be the sweet spot for our guys. And that's coupled with a couple likely schools, which Molly mentioned earlier. So schools that you really feel good about, based off of the numbers, based off the test scores, based off of your transcript over the 6 semesters. Then you're going to look at The targets, it's like a 50-50 shot at getting in. Or 50% you feel pretty good about it based off the numbers, based off of the school, based off of the selectivity, based off of all the research that you've done. And then a reach. A reach is going to be 30% or less that you think you might get in. You're giving it a go, and you're going to try for that. Every student's reach, target, and likely is going to be different. And I can't stress that enough. Your son's college experience is going to be unique to your son. You may hear other parents talking about their son's experience, the schools that they've visited, the programs they're applying for. It's important that you keep in mind it's your son's process and it's going to be relevant to him. So it's easy to compare, it's easy to converse with other people, and it's a great way to learn more about schools, but also don't get lost in that at the same time. Having a reason why to attend is a really big deal. So part of that 8 to 12 list, we don't want them to just put lists up like schools on their list because they're like, you know what, I really heard Penn State was a pretty good school. Like, would you ever go to Penn State? I don't know. Not a good enough reason, obviously. They have to have a legitimate reason to putting these schools on, because at the end of the day, you're just wasting that school's time, you're wasting your time if you really have no intention of going. So finding the 8 to 10, 8 to 12 likelies that you could do. Considering SUNY and CUNY schools, the city universities and the state universities, good value and good price, good locations, something to consider in the mix with our guys. We always stress looking into those schools for the programs that they offer, because there's a lot of really good programs that they do offer. Is it a good school? And again, remembering fit. Is it a good school for your student, your son? You know, other parents, again, that may not be a good school for them. Doesn't mean it won't be the perfect fit for your son, or won't be exactly what he's looking for. So that unique perspective to kind of keep in mind, just to frame your mind as you start to go through this process, is important. So now I'm going to pass it over to Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Buckley. I know you've been talked at to for the past hour plus, and I'm the anchor leg of this whole thing. And despite Mr. Dormer might tell your son if he's on the track team, everyone knows the anchor leg is the fastest leg, so you're in luck. All right, what to do next, all right? We're gonna be with your guys the whole time through this. Anybody been through this process here before, Xavier, with an older son? All right, you guys happy with the results? Don't answer that, I'm only kidding. We'll be with them. If they're invested, we're definitely going to be invested in taking them along the steps as they need to go in a healthy, balanced way. Never good. If your son's a crammer, we're going to take some of that cram, pull it forward, and try to get some of that work done that's important, that you don't want to cram at the end. You don't want to be writing your essay on Halloween night if it's due on November 1st. I see some giggles because these things happen. That's not a good plan, all right? We have a very good plan in place. I like to think so, at least. And we will walk them along through junior group guidance. We pick them up. That's how we refer to it. We pick up juniors. We start actively working with your sons once a cycle from late January all the way through the end of senior year. Okay, so we have them for a year and a half through this process. That said, they need to show up. They need to come to group. We will remind them, because we don't necessarily stop and make it up if someone misses. We offer make-up groups and whatnot, but we're going to keep moving along the process, not with or without them, but when you feel like you're behind, that tends to motivate them when you think the rest of your peers are there doing this and that, all right? Part of what we'll do with them in these group guidance classes, we're going to discuss test plan. Like Ms. Amagon said, they're going to get the PSAT and the pre-ACT results back very soon, within the next month or so. We're going to give them a little perspective and presentation on what the scores mean, how they can improve, because very rarely do your sons like their scores when they get them back. But they also haven't done much preparation for the most part. A larger majority of the guys go and take the test cold, as they should, and you get a raw baseline score. They all go up. 97% of them go up. All right. So we're going to help them map that out. All right. We're going to use Naviance to start researching colleges online, and once we get into the meat of that, it can take them in any direction they want to go. Again, that's going to be somewhat of a self-directed search. We're going to give them the tools, then they have to use them. The career exploration series, Ms. Amagon puts that together. As you can tell, she is very thorough in her presentations. So you can expect to get a very good in-depth perspective from a professional in a certain career field, whether it be medical, business, engineering, education, humanities, something to that effect. Those will be happening starting...
The first one's on November 19th. There's the announcements on PT, physical therapy.
First one on November 19th, physical therapist, medical field in general. And, yep, and you can see the announcements every day, right? So, hey, John, why don't you go check that out? Feel free to encourage them to do that, and we will as well, all right? The most important thing to remember for junior year is that you'll hear the junior year is the most important year. Is it, in the grand scheme of the overall number that they're presenting? No, it's all math, all right? You actually have less classes junior year compared to freshman and sophomore year. So the pure math of an average will carry less statistical weight when you're looking at a 6-semester GPA. What you do want to show is that you are taking more rigorous courses if you've done well previously, and that who you were as a student at 13, 14 is not who you are at 16 and 17. Colleges are going to want to see who you are now. So, in a way, it is very important because you're going to show the you that the college will be getting, more so than when you did previously. All right, and that's going to carry out through senior year as well. Seniors tend not to believe that, but beginning of senior year isn't easy. All right, and then into the second semester, like I said, we're going to be doing junior group guidance with them, and they'll be required to go to that. I believe we have 8 meetings. When it comes to course selection, all right, we will actually be in the room with your sons, clicking on the courses that they'll select and submitting them to the registrar. It's a discussion that we will have with them before we actually select the class. They can speak with their guidance counselor. You should be involved. All right, when course selections come out, when they get the course sheet and see what the prerequisites are, and they're going to go from only having a few electives from the previous 2 years to triple that amount. All right, so depending on what they want to study in college, you're going to tailor your course selections toward that major. If they want to be an engineer, they do need to take a math and science course senior year. Even though they're not required by Xavier High School, it's a 3-year requirement. A 4th year and maybe even a 5th year of science is a good idea. So depending what he might want to study, we're going to tailor the courses he takes senior year to that. If he doesn't know or has somewhat of an idea, we can help with that as well. Come see us. It's not going to take long. We're going to get a couple pieces of information and we're going to go forward with that. All right? Get out there and visit in the spring if you can. We know that a lot of you guys are involved with the after school and weekend activities and sports. You've got to get on campus. You have to get an idea. You don't have to go far right now. We have a lot of great schools in the New York area. You could go to Fordham in the Bronx. You could go to Fordham in Lincoln Center. You could go to Manhattan College in Riverdale. You can go to NYU down the block. You can go to Columbia, very nice campus if you haven't been there, which is uptown and kind of like a hidden world up there. If you want to see a big state school, we have Rutgers close by, relatively close by, Stony Brook on Long Island. You'll get a feel for a different kind of school. Manhattan College has a great engineering program, as does Stony Brook. Very different places with different programs and a different population. You need to get a feel for what you want. So even if you go to St. John's and you say, there's no way I'm staying in New York, I want to go out, you will get a feel for campus life, and if you like it or not. All right? And when you come back to us and tell us, hey, I went here and visited, took the tour, liked it, liked the kids, liked the program, okay, great. Here are 5 more schools that I know, guys that like this campus also have liked. Check them out. That's the advisory capacity that we serve, and the sooner you get out there and do that, the better. All right? Teacher recommendations, we will walk them through that part of the process. There is paperwork. There is a strategy to who you're going to ask and when. And we will assist them with that through the group guidance curriculum. You're also going to want to start thinking about what you're doing this summer. Again, I'm somewhat okay with my 4th grader sitting around or getting up at 6:30 in the morning to play his Xbox for a short amount of time and doing that during the summer. Your son going into senior year, not a good idea. They've got to do something. And like one of my colleagues said before, it doesn't have to be anything specific. If they've been doing half for the past 2 years and want to continue that, great. If they want to get a job, great. If they want to go out and have some other kind of experience, great. We will also present to you throughout, probably after Christmas time, whenever we get information on summer programs, at a college or university or a legitimate organization, we will send that out to you, typically by email. So you don't have to go digging alone, all right? So for yourselves, so that's for your son. We're going to direct them to do those things. For yourselves, you do need to be involved in this process with him. If he says, Ma, I got it, or Dad, don't worry, I'm doing it. No, I don't think any of our Xavier graduates at 17, 18 years old understand what the finances are involved with this, nor do they pay for it themselves. So you're the investor a lot of times. Ultimately, they will be paying back loans if you take them out, but you are the primary investor, so you should be a major part of this. Not doing the applications yourselves, but walking alongside your sons on the journey. All right? Activate your parent account in Naviance. You have a handout with instructions on how to do that. The financial aid tools that are at your disposal now, the FAFSA forecaster and net price calculators. Go to those websites, and they're going to be big and somewhat overwhelming at first, but the sooner you become familiar with them, the more comfortable you'll be with the financial aid process when it actually comes around about this time in October 1st of next year. All right, the FAFSA forecaster is a government website. Yes, there is national number 4 in there. And then the net price calculator is a tool that every college and university has on their website. So if you go to a college's website, it can be hard to navigate if you're just going to click around. Go to the search bar, net price calculator, it'll be there. And every net price calculator on each school will give you a different number. You can put the same information in for every one. Not every college awards aid in the same way. All right, so you're going to want to do that for each of the schools that your son is interested in. Bless you. And you can do that now. As we go into second semester, all right, when we get them and pick them up full-fledged, we're more than happy to talk with you at any time. Right now, we're still in the thick of things with seniors. After January, after we get back from Christmas break, we will happily speak with you at length if that's what you so desire. All right. Again, go out there and visit. Talk to your son about what his plans are for the summer before the summer gets here. All right, preferably before Easter break, and you should be on a good path. In senior year, this is when we get into the nitty-gritty with them in college group guidance. We'll only meet 4 times because at that point, we'll have set them up to have a good productive summer and do some level of college work to prepare their applications. We'll actually set up their common application with them at the end of junior year, and the coalition application if they need that. All right. At this point, at the beginning of senior year, you will already have taken a few tests, SAT or ACT, subject test if you need to. You'll have the option of taking a late August administration of the SAT, which we suggest you do take, because once you hit senior year, the ball rolls very fast, much faster than it's ever rolled before, and it's going to be hard to prep for the test, do the mountains of work you're assigned senior year, participate in all of your sports and activities, and do well on that test. And it's important to do that, all right? Consider taking, if you want to take a test in the beginning of senior year, do consider that August test, all right? We're going to have another one of these senior year, and we're going to go into the details of the application process. This is a general overview. We'll cover the details at that one, all right? When the FAFSA and the CSS profile, your 2 financial aid tools that colleges require, everyone requires the FAFSA. Some of them require the CSS profiles, typically private schools that are rather expensive, as a sticker price. All right, those are both available on October 1st. The sooner you submit them, the better. All right. Keep visiting colleges. Summer's a good time to visit because you typically have more time as a student. Always good to see a campus alive with students on it. All right, you can go to a campus, and there's always going to be something going on. Sometimes there are lulls or less busy periods, but go out there and see what the student life is really like. You know, if you pull up to fraternity row and they're yelling, hey, send us your daughters, you know, maybe that's not what you want to hear, you know? Especially because you have a son with you. But anyway, you don't want him to be that guy yelling that eventually. Or maybe you do. Personal choices. Anyway. It's the end. I'm going off on the rails. But, you know, go out and visit, obviously, all kidding aside, because I just heard a story today from one of the counselors, student who graduated from here in 2014, is now regretting his decision to go where he went. He chose to go there without ever stepping on campus. I think that's the worst thing you could do. You have to get on campus. It doesn't have to be before you apply, You can apply to a college without having been there, but you do need to be on those campuses, all right? And then when it's all said and done, our office has a goal of having everything wrapped up and sent out on our end, and hopefully sent out on your end before Christmas break, all right, for seniors. Hopefully you're done. Let's enjoy that time off with our families and just be done with the whole process. There is time to do that. And then after that, we come back, hopefully have a great end of senior year. The national decision deadline is May 1st. If you applied early action or regular decision, everyone has to have their deposit in. That's a universal deadline for all colleges by May 1st to reserve your seat in the class. Then we wrap it up, and we have nice celebrations at the end, and masses and galas and this and that. And then we graduate, and we'll see you at alumni events. All right? Now, it is time for questions and answers. Oh, I'm sorry, wait, it's not time for questions and answers. Future events, we're going to go over this with your son. It's in your packet. These are the things that we're going to do with them at the end of, or from the beginning of second semester junior year through the end. And they're all geared in some way towards college and career exploration and development. And there you go. Stay calm. It's going to be okay. You're here now. We're here with you. And, you know, when parents say it's an overwhelming process, I get it. I totally understand. But if you kind of walk the path in an even-keeled way and do a little bit at a time, you won't feel like there's a mountain ahead of you to climb. And you're going to be all right. There's our contact information. If you need to roll, you may roll. If you have questions, feel free to stay. We will answer them. Thank you. Question right there.
If we want to visit a college campus,
We'll just repeat.
if we want to visit a college campus, say this winter or during class, about faculty sessions, will Xavier have any allowances or days to do that?
So the question was, if you want to visit a campus, will Xavier give you a day off, basically, if you want to go do that? The answer is theoretically no, because we do have days built in. Veterans Day, Columbus Day, Halloween. There are different days within the schedule in the spring and in the fall where you can go and do that. So the answer is no. But if you really need to take one day, you do what you got to do. I didn't say that though. Absolutely. If your son's going on CFX, one of the volunteer trips with Xavier, great summer experience. That's 1 week out of your 10, though. So that's great. Absolutely.
That's 1 week.
Do every CFX thing you can. 1 week out of 10, I would say that's not enough.
Great start.
Great start.
I have a student who did TFX, was really moved, had a great experience, transformational experience, came back, had time off, like didn't have anything planned, went to the senior citizen center right down his street and started volunteering like immediately afterwards. I mean, that's exactly what he did with the rest of his time. So something like that, you know, talk to people, talk to friends and family, you know, find out what their offices can, if you could get a week at someone's office, shadowing, if you can continue his community service, you know, the HAT program, even just to continue being camp counselors if they've been counselors at camps before, you know, anything. Family vacations are good too. You can take family vacations. Yeah, I'll let some. I can't shoot.
I know. We'll start in the front and work our way back. Okay.
Is there any specific time that you do or meeting with students and parents?
So the question is, do we have specific times where we coordinate meeting with students and parents? We will be available to meet. Do you mean individually? Yeah, you could make an appointment with us. We just asked maybe start that in January once we're wrap things up with the seniors. But we would be able to meet with you if you have individual or specific questions related to your son's process.
I want to go back to something So you were saying something about you wouldn't have an honors class in your sophomore year and it's 8 people in your junior year. But my son was honors English last year and it's AP English
Right, no, sorry, I meant in the same year, the same grade level. So like honors, there's no honors history, AP, US history course. We do have an AP history course. If there's an honors course, there's no AP version in the same year.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't understand.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. Sure. Yeah, the question is there a bus tour in April? We will be having a day in April where TBD, where we're going. Last year we went to Fairfield, Sacred Heart, and Quinnipiac. And all juniors are welcome to attend that. We don't have an exact date yet, right?
We don't have the date or the school set yet.
Yeah.
We went to the Connecticut schools last year. I gotta be honest, we tried to switch it up just to keep our interest level up as well.
And whoever gives us free lunch.
Correct.
They love the cafeteria.
It's something that's a day trip. We'll leave early, we'll come back a little later, but we don't want them to be super grumpy Gus's at the end, so we'll make it a day trip. And there's so many schools around the area, we make it work.
Okay.
That's like super scoring. So when you submit your scores, do they see the other score that you're not submitting?
They will see so the question was, do they see the other score that you're not submitting when you super score? So when you send scores from the College Board, you have to send the entire test date. You can't splice the test date. So they will see they can see the two sections for each test date, but oftentimes they don't even look at that because their computer systems just super score it automatically, and then they send the super score kind of with the student's file. So they could look into it if they wanted to, but they don't. They just take the super score and move on.
And then one other question.
Yeah.
In terms of like you can take the SAT or ACT as many times as you want, is there a point of like way too much testing where it actually hurts you?
Right, so the question is, can you take it too many times?
4 is plenty. No more than 4. 4 is a lot. 4 is fine if you need 4.
So the colleges, they don't really care because, again, when you send the test scores, you're going to choose which test dates you're sending. So you're going to, at most, send your 2 highest scores for the, for the SAT, the test dates with the 2 highest scores. So they're not going to see all those other test dates. The way that I usually put it to students is, do you feel like you have more room to go? Some guys have a very slow start, then the next time they're sick. Then the next time they forget their calculator. Like, whatever it is, like, sometimes some guys just feel like they want to go at it again. If it's the parent pushing another test date and the student is like, I've done what I can do here, then usually it's not effective. But some kids want to.
And I think you have to realistically think about, is there going to be time to prepare to see growth in scores? It's not just magically going to, or if it was a calculator issue, then maybe, but you want to think about, are you going to be able to sit down and have a couple hours of studying at least in between the exams? I know I'm neglecting this side of the room, but we'll go, okay, your question. Yeah.
Do we help for students who qualify for additional time? Will the school help us get them extra time? When
Yes.
should we start that conversation with you guys?
So the question was about extended time for SAT and ACT. You should let your son's guidance counselor know, and then they will actually pass that information to me, and I can apply for those accommodations. So do that very soon. So yeah, that should start now. Yeah. Yes. I think you had your hand up first.
There's 2 resources. One is a Princeton review. You can do ACT and SAT free testing, and then they will give you can maybe determine it's free online. They're going to push you to get their testing prep, but that's just a resource.
Okay.
The other thing is I made my son already set up a Gmail account just for college. It's his first, last name, and then the word college@gmail.com, and I have the password.
Okay.
So he will not accidentally
And he has the
get
passwords too.
an email to someone else or to a friend or something that might be negative.
Okay.
But I also wanted to talk about core curriculum, schools that are core versus an
Open curriculum, yeah.
That's one of the best ways. We went and saw 15 schools this summer.
Okay.
So that was what we realized was the way to determine. I didn't hear any discussion about that, so that was my exploring on talking to your kids. I didn't understand that.
That would be, that's a great topic to bring up. Not every student is going to be that in-depth with their research and knowledge of what the college offers. If you'd like to have an individual conversation about that, or if anybody would, we're more than happy to.
Yeah, I'm just saying that's a real way to figure it out. Do you do any Myers-Briggs testing to help kids that have no idea what they want to do figure out?
We don't do Myers-Briggs testing, but we do an assessment. There is a career assessment on Naviance. So when we get them in college group, they go through that assessment piece. It's based on Myers-Briggs, but it's not the full Myers-Briggs. It's kind of a condensed version. So we will take them through that career assessment, then they get their results, and then we talk about it in group. And then because it's on Naviance, we have access to those, to kind of their career profile that it comes up with. And then we talk about the things that are recommended from that assessment. And then really in our one-on-one conversations with the guys, starting in junior year, as we get to know them, we start to hear like, okay, they don't have any idea what they want to do. And then we talk about their interests, we talk about what a lot of times their service can be incorporated into kind of a career development. What are you up to over the summer? You know, how can we start to explore some potential career options? That's what the Career Exploration Series is for. It's for students any age and any grade level to come and just hear about different careers and start putting the questions out there. So it's kind of an abbreviated version of the Myers-Briggs in group.
Yes, back here.
On the letters of recommendations, besides the school recommendations, are we allowed to send extra ones, like let's say volunteer supervisor writes you a recommendation?
Sure, the question was about letters of recommendation. Are you allowed to send sort of additional letters of recommendation? And that would be fine. Not every school will accept them, but for them, you're welcome to submit those, and we will send those on your son's behalf. That could come from maybe a mentor or advisor, a supervisor, somebody they supervise them while volunteering. It will not take the place of the teacher recommendation or the counselor recommendation, but supplemental materials are accepted.
And we'll help them figure out how to get those to the colleges.
Yeah.
We use Naviance, just so you know, we use Naviance as our vehicle to send all school documents. Everything in your packet that we would send, your transcript, secondary school profile, counselor letter, teacher letter, secondary school report, any other Common App documents that we might have to send. That all goes through Naviance, whether it's no matter what the school is, with very few exceptions. Outside recommendations is a way to use the coalition application, the common application, or just plain old mail to send them. And we typically send the Xavier documents, and we help your son figure out the best way to send an outside recommendation, whatever that is, through other means that are perfectly acceptable.
A good question to ask yourself on that front is, you know, will this person's, first of all, does this person really know your son? Just a friend who graduated from the college that your son's applying to, who doesn't know your son very well, is not a helpful letter. So it really has to be somebody who knows your son and can really write about him specifically.
Unless they have a wing named after
right,
him,
unless there's a building,
or
right, named after that person,
no
or they're related to a Jesuit priest. Like, then don't, like, just people who went to the college and don't really know your son, writing a letter on his behalf, it doesn't actually help in the application. So if you have these outside people, make sure it's your son who's asking the person for the letter. I have moms asking people for letters on behalf of their son. Son doesn't know. It has to be from the son. You know, make sure he's asking the person that he's working with.
Okay, Jimmy.
If you're considering a gap year, would you use the SATs from now, or do they have to take it right before they go to school, and then looked upon negatively or positively by the schools if they take a gap year?
So a gap year is basically you're taking, after you graduate from Xavier High School, you're doing something else with your time for a year before you start college. Your SAT, in reference to the SAT scores, they're going to use whatever scores you send them. You can take them every offering during the gap year if you want. And they'll also use your senior year transcript, your final transcript, to make a decision. Typically what we would do, correct me if I'm wrong, is apply to college now, get your acceptances, because you have our full resources behind you. If you're going to take a gap year that involves going to another school, another academic institution for the purpose of developing as an athlete or just to do better, if that's your choice, you can do that as well, and then those grades would go. But it's going to be your end of your academic record from Xavier, which we're going to send anyway. So if you apply to a college, you can ask them after you've been accepted or even before, whether they would defer your admission to the following class year. That's typically what we would advise. There are many ways to do that. Do a lot of our guys take gap years? No, but that doesn't mean your son can't.
And so if he doesn't go through, so he can either, like as Tom said, go through the application process with us in senior year, get acceptances, decide on his college, deposit at one, get a deferral from that college, they hold his place until the following year. So that's one way to do it. Or if he doesn't want to go through the application process in his senior year because he wants to wait, he's going to have a year doing whatever, and then he wants to apply to college, you know, he just contacts us back in the fall of his gap year, and we have all the documents and we can send everything out, you know, in the fall of that gap year, and he can use the test scores that he had from the previous year, and that's fine too. So we're available, you know, even if he's already graduated, we can help, and we'll have all the documents.
Too many kids doing that, you don't know whether it's looked at positively or negatively at the school.
I mean, from the college, he's applying as a freshman. He's applying as a freshman, and what they want to know when they take a gap year is what's the student doing? What are they doing in that time? Why? Why do you want to take a gap year? But as long as the student is, if they've done the first kind of method where they've actually enrolled and they've deferred their spot for the year, they're going to want to make sure that he's not taking any other college classes anywhere, and they're just going to want to know what he's doing, basically. But if he's not applying and he's waiting, they just want to know what he's doing, but he'll apply as a freshman like anybody else.
Our daughter took a gap year because she graduated high school at 17, and she went through the whole process using school resources, and she applied and deferred, and they had zero problem with it, and her college actually was over-enrolled, so they offered her money. They were happy to have her defer, and some schools have that because they were over-enrolled for their freshman class. But they just made her sign a piece of paper, like basically declaring a statement of she wouldn't be taking academic classes and why she wanted to take a gap year. And they were really interested in why, and it dovetailed into the majors that she had applied for. So they were happy to do it.
It's not a bad thing to think about, especially, like, that's one thing if your son has plans and you have a specific idea of what, you know, he has an idea of what he wants to do in that year. It's also not a bad idea if, you know, if you feel like your son is not ready to go to college, if he's not ready to go the fall after senior year. You know, have that conversation with him, have that conversation with us. It happens. It's fine. We want to make sure that we're talking about it. We want to make sure that everybody's on board that starting September after senior year is the right time for him to start. We have guys who don't start in the September, and then they come back and they see us, you know, a year later, a couple months later, and we go through the process. You know, we get them, they apply for the following, either the following spring or even the following fall. So every student can be different. We'll start in the back and work our way up.
So we're looking at summer programs, hopefully for him to go to maybe a campus and do a program at a campus. And we got like this fancy letter from a company that was doing this leadership program. My question is, I don't know anything about it, so can we come to you to say, like, is this a good program? Should you go, like, I just don't want to go blindly, especially because some of them are expensive.
Yeah, I think when your son registered for the PSAT, colleges have paid for that mailing information, so you're probably getting a lot of mail, and some of it looks fancy and expensive. So always a good idea to run that by us. We can, you know, vet some of the programs, and maybe we have some historical information on whether students have gone to those in the past. Sometimes those, you know, programs that you have to pay for leadership programs, colleges don't always value those as much as maybe an academic experience on a college campus, or maybe an internship or a job. So we can kind of have that conversation with you where, you know, paying for something may not really look that great on an application.
And it's not necessarily a scam. It could be a very good experience if your son wants to be a national student leader in some discipline, law, pre-med, whatever. That's fine. They get on a campus, they have a good experience with a bunch of peers. It's nice, it's typically expensive, but like Molly said, it's not going to help him look better when he's an applicant to the college, that college or any college. When we send you stuff, it's typically, we vetted it. If we send you an email with the summer program, we vet it. The programs run by a college or university are typically, I think, more legitimate than an organization that rents space on a campus to run their program. If you get something from that offers you a black and gold bumper sticker that says NHSSS Scholar, my son is a scholar, my child is a scholar, don't do that, waste $70.
The thing also, one thing about the summer program also, if it's a summer program that requires your son to apply for it and to send in an essay, a reference, a transcript, scores, potentially PSAT scores, this is a different type of program. This is a selective program. So if he is, that not just anybody who can just pay for it can do, right? So one of these programs where you actually have to be selected into it, that's the kind of program that when you put that on your application to colleges, they know those programs that have selectivity to them. So like the Notre Dame Scholars Program, it's a summer program on Notre Dame's campus for juniors, rising seniors, that they have to be selected to be. So when colleges see that, okay, that has weight to it in a different way than doing classes at Notre Dame where anybody can just sign up for the classes at Notre Dame. So there are those programs out there. So if you see those ones, okay, that requires more work up front because there's this selection process. So keep your eye out for those ones. More work, but yeah.
A few more. How about it? Right back there.
Will you
Oh, sorry.
guide the student to which test they're better off taking, the ACT or the SAT? I mean, you have to get sort of data that way to show that?
Not necessarily a data-driven piece of advice, more of a, hey, let's look at your numbers, the most basic data. What do you feel more comfortable with? What's your progression been on the PSAT from sophomore year to junior year? How'd you feel about the ACT when you took it, basically not even knowing you were going to take it this year, cold? And we can compare their numbers on both, see where they naturally did better without a ton of prep, and then we can advise that way. That's typically the road we take.
When the pre-ACT scores come back, I believe that they include on their score report a projected ACT score range, is a score range. So that's helpful too because you take that projected ACT score range, get that conversion chart to SAT. Okay, so based on his 2 PSAT sittings, is he on track to kind of hit that same mark for SATs? If he sits and takes the SAT, say, you also have to think of how much math that they are having. So like for juniors, if they're on the Algebra 2 trig, regular Algebra 2 trig right now, there is some of that on the SAT. So they're just seeing that really for the first time. In October, they were just basically back from summer. So they take the test in March for the first time. They're going to have seen a lot of that Algebra 2 trig that they hadn't had yet. So their math naturally is just going to go up when they take it then. So I always say, start with that pre-ACT, look at the projected range, convert that to an SAT, and does their PSAT look like it's on track to get close to that, higher than that? Where can that direct the student? And then do what the other lady said about this test case where you take a section of SAT online, a practice section, and then you go right to a practice ACT section and feel the differences. Sometimes you really need it side by side to feel the differences and what type of, how the questions are being asked and what seems to click more with the student. Some people do. Some people feel like they're really on par. There's their pre-ACT and their PSAT, and they want to just have a test experience in both, and they start with both, and then they go from there. Again, we generally recommend that they don't take each test 2 or 3 times. It's too much. They're getting confused. You got to focus at some point.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. You've been.
For our older son, sometimes when he tried to sign up for either the ACT or the SAT, the testing sites that he wanted were booked really quickly.
Yeah.
So how early can we sign up for these?
Yeah. It starts, it's a year out. So, well, I think it is.
Yeah, they can register now for the 2019-2020 testing year. Yes.
Yeah. So New York City is a popular place, or just some of the SAT sites fill up. They have the capacity fills up early on. So if you want to, especially if you want your son to take it here, we do fill up very quickly. So you can register well in advance. I don't have exact dates on when all that does fill up, but I do know if you go, say, a month before to try and register, Xavier's typically already filled up. So. Yes.
As far as colleges are concerned, is it okay if your son plays sports all summer? For the teams that he's playing for?
Oh, yeah.
Go in the house in Costa Rica or something like that?
Sure.
Yeah.
As long as they're doing something productive. If he's working on his game, whatever game that is, absolutely.
Yeah. And then, you know, because you want the application to have a theme to it, and you would see that he's playing those sports throughout the year, so colleges won't pick up on that trend. Yes?
Does Xavier offers any internship for rising seniors? Because I know Father Diaby was trying to organize something with the parents and then to place them during the summer potentially for some experience outside.
We have not formalized an internship program for current students. That is, that is a full-time, like that would be a full-time job, which nobody has yet. Yes, I think hopefully, but you know, I have had guys who have reached out to, like, okay, so another thing that was on that list of future events is our career day. So career day is in March. We have Xavier grads come back. We had 15 last year, all different fields. The guys will rank which presentations in which industries they want to go hear from. And then after career day, a lot of our students are going up to these alums and talking with them and getting their contact information and following up. We had one guy who had the summer internship with, what's his name? But so a lot of that contact are available. It just takes the student to go. I mean, I tell people all the time, I'm like, go see Mr. Massey up in the alumni office and talk to him. He's got guys. It's just not a formalized program. So if your son is somebody who can go into an office and introduce himself to one of the people here at Xavier who couldn't be more welcoming and nicer, like, tell him to go see Mr. Massey. I'm sure he'll hook him up with somebody.
He's the director of alumni relations.
Yeah. One thing I forgot to go back to, if I can just say it really quickly, because then I'm going to feel bad when I go home later that I didn't go back to it. The demonstrated interest, that was like one of those little asterisks that I forgot to go back to. So demonstrated interest is where colleges track how many points of contact you have with them. And some schools will use the frequency of your contact as part of the actual application review process. Not all schools track demonstrated interest. I would say actually not many track demonstrated interest to use in the application review itself. So basically what that means is that you come to campus, you fill out the card, they know you've been to campus. They send your son an email, he opens it, it all goes into their data stream, right? For many of the schools, they just want to know what points of contact are working. But some colleges, if they are getting down to the wire, especially maybe when it comes to a waitlist process, or maybe your son is on the fence in terms of being admitted or not, and they see that he's come to campus 3 times and he's opened emails and he met with the admissions rep when he or she came to Xavier, and there's been all these points of contact, that might show them the love, and they may feel that your son, if admitted, will actually attend. That's the end goal for them. They need to yield their class. So this demonstrated interest piece with all these new data streams is something that schools are tracking. The question to 2 things, when you go to campuses, make sure you make it an official visit, which means that if you're going to visit a friend or a family member or whoever, just swing by the admissions office. They all have those cards. Your son puts his name, you leave the card, and you go do your own thing or whatever. But there's like that kind of makes it the official visit. And then the next question to ask is, when you're there, do they consider demonstrated interest as part of the application review? So that's different than just do you track demonstrated interest, because many people do, but is it part of the application review? Is it going to come into play when they're looking at the strength of your student for that fit piece? Is it being reviewed? Yeah.
So that's why I actually wanted to ask, if they have a class at school, if they're interested in it, are they allowed to go this year when the seniors are seeing the schools to write down their name?
Not yet. Well, we're about to finish up with our fall reps, but in the spring, they start again. Most reps aren't really coming to visit with juniors until, like, that will start in March next year, and that's just for the juniors. And so they will get all the emails of people when they come to visit Xavier, and they'll be invited to all those meetings.
So they can't go into the seniors and write their names, is what
No, I mean, but they're done now.
Typically not. We have a couple left. If they want information, we can pick it up. If if they wanted to go to a school since they were 3 years old, just have them come speak to us and we'll figure something out.
And the other question I asked, wanted to know, is the SATs, are they still learning stuff that's in grade 11, that's going to be on the SAT?
It depends on their math. If they're in Algebra 2 Trig, kind of the beginning months of junior year is when the last things that could be included on the SAT are going to be covered. If the students beyond Algebra 2 Trig, then they've seen it all. But I mean, like with the critical reading, they've done that since they, yeah. I mean, that's why we say, like, why not take the, like, some people ask, like, why not take this, like, in sophomore year, take the SATs in sophomore year. You can, but a lot of the students just haven't had the math. They haven't had the full math progression to really cover everything that's in the SAT.
So they could, I mean, theoretically, they would be prepared to take the December administration. I wouldn't rush into that at this point because basically all of New York is full. But March is the next SAT administration, early March, and that's typically when most of our guys take it. They're just totally in the school groove. This part of the year is so moving in fast and forward. By the time they get to March, there's a little bit of a lull in the sports schedule. They'll have time to prep from January on, and that's a good amount of time to get ready. So March is typically when our guys take it for the first time.
Yes.
My son's considering West Point. Is there anything we should be doing now?
A lot of things. So when it comes to service academies, it is a very different process, much more involved. As soon as we get back from school, there will be an announcement, there will be an email. Any students interested in applying to service academies, please come see me at community period in this room, and I'm kind of the point person for that typically, and we will guide them along the way in the process. There are more recommendations, there's a nomination involved. You have to open a candidate file for whatever academy or academies you're intending on applying to, and that is a real, we check in with them every month. So typically what I find with that, if you're interested in the service academy, I will check in with you. We will set you on the right path, give you show you where the timeline is on their website. As long as you check the boxes, because they give you a month-to-month checklist, as long as you're driving that bus and you're just kind of conferring with me, you'll have a successful process. Whether you get in or not is, it's competitive. But if I'm the one telling you what to do when, that military academy might not be for you, and that's just what I found. The kid initiates the process. The student really takes ownership of it. We're going to do well in the right time frame. But yeah, we'll definitely help you with that. We love our academies, and they love us.
And with athletics, if your son is thinking about pursuing athletics in college, that's something to, when we start meeting in junior year, to really start talking about with your son. He can do a lot of research on all the divisions and kind of talk to his coach where he really thinks, is a possibility for him to be playing. Start having those conversations. We work with lots of students who are recruited athletes. When you get to looking at those scattergrams, okay, sometimes you'll see on the scattergrams on Naviance, you've got outliers for whatever reason. Sometimes it's a recruited athlete. Could be one of the reasons why somebody gets in somewhere. Now, recruited athlete doesn't just mean athlete. They're in a recruited process. They've been flagged by the coach. The whole process has happened kind of behind the scenes, very legitimately behind the scenes, but still, this student athlete has performed. We actually have some guys who've already committed for athletics, so it's very exciting.
I would imagine would you be most comfortable taking the SAT here in March, or you're going to give them enough warning that they'll have time to sign up?
Consider yourself warned. Register now.
Go home and this is the warning. Go home and sign up for it if they want to take it here. Sometimes taking it here is not the best thing for them. If they have a long commute, it's an early test. Sometimes when they have their buddies next to them, not a good situation. Sometimes if they're literally at the public school down the street from them and they don't know anybody, they're just all focused and they just walk in and they just, maybe it takes them a minute to figure out where to walk in and to get the lay of the land, but once they're sitting at their desk, it's actually like they've got blinders on and they can actually be quite focused. So talk through with him, is it more important to feel comfortable getting to the place and walking in, or is it more important to feel like you're not going to get distracted? So talk with him, but sign up for them now. If he wants to do March, as Mr. G said, you've been warned.
They all have College Board accounts set up already. If they don't think they do, we've done that with, I believe, sophomore year in group guidance. Sure.
Where on our website?
It's collegeboard.org. Collegeboard.org. And ACT is ACT.org. So SAT is College Board, ACT is ACT. I'm sorry? There's an ACT's got weird rules with what state they can give a test in on certain dates. It's on their website, and I think that law might be changing in 2020. I'm not sure, but
April, June.
If you were only going to take the SAT once, let's say, do you have a time of year that you would recommend? Do you feel that they do better in the March because they're in school and because the rhythm is there and maybe they do
everyone's
Saturday
different.
classes?
I hate to say it, but it's just true. Everyone's different. Rarely do you see the March test as their best test.
I would say if you're going to take it once, and I'm going to tell you to take it twice, but if you do want to stick with once, I would say fall of senior year.
Okay.
Hopefully you're your smartest in the fall of your senior year.
Do you mean fall or August?
Sorry?
You mean fall or August?
I'm sorry, August, like that testing season. The testing season, the hunting season. August, October.
August
Right.
register early,
August,
that one fills
October,
up.
November, they dropped that September. August, October, November, and December. I think that's when they're most motivated, honestly. They're filling out the applications. They've gone to so many campuses, like things are real when they're in fall of senior year. I think that's more motivating. Some guys, they're too stressed. So maybe the spring of I think it's great to take one in spring of junior year, and then try another one in the fall. Yeah, everybody's like Dylan.
Was there a question in the back earlier?
Actually, it was from
Yeah.
your slide. Yeah, I've been here 24 years. I still have to ask the question. When you were saying to go see like 2 or 3 different schools, should you maybe see a big one, a medium one, and a Jesuit one? Not in that order.
Yes, sir. I believe that is a good idea. A big school, a smaller school. Small can mean different things for different people. Small could mean under 2,000 students. Small could mean under 7,000 students, depending on what you want. But you will get a good feel. There's a big difference between Lemoyne, which is in the city of Syracuse, and Syracuse University in terms of size, scope, offerings. And Syracuse, not so bad from May through August. Unless you like the cold. If anybody has any other questions, feel free to come on up. Thank you for coming.
Good. How are you doing, man? How are you? This is the first one of these things you saw? I can't do one after sophomore year. It's a process. Yeah, it's a process. Like the one. We're going to go to Fordham on Monday. The Jets Giants game. We got an info section it'll work out. I'll see you tomorrow. I don't even know if they're going to show up, right? I don't know. I don't bet that he won't show up. To be honest, yeah, but I think it's I'll look at 11 or 12. I'll look at 6. All right. It's still making money. Part of me. No worries. You won't show up. So my son is like, you know what, I'm going to show up and get that place. Yeah, that's all. So we'll get that place. You just like it goes. Yeah. I'll let Camilo say. I got it. I should have